So, after all this work and feeling and clearing, and letting go, and making peace with and being grateful for all that stuff from childhood and adolescence. This is the word I was looking for. Yesterday I kept saying this teenage years. I was like, I know there's a word for this. Adolescence. It's the same in French too, so I don't know why I didn't think of it. So after all this work, obviously this is, an ongoing thing. It's not like, oh my God, that's it. I'm never going to feel anything that comes up, around childhood or adolescence anymore. But I'd like us to continue our work of the foundations, to bring it more into the soul level, the self-esteem at soul level. The soul part of us is also part of the four-body system. I mean, there's different level of souls, but it's still on the mental plane, so it's still susceptible to illusion and belief and limited lens perception, reality models, all that stuff. As you know, we can carry baggage from life to life, and that's something that the soul vehicle, because the soul is still a vehicle, it's not actually our essence. The essence of which we are is the spirit being, which is embodied through the soul, and then every life builds a new mental, emotional, physical body. So the soul is basically the vehicle that allows us to be embodied life after life after life, and it's a vehicle that lasts a lot longer than this physical vehicle. And so at the end of every life we return this physical and emotional and mental body to the earth to be recycled. There's, however, a little kind of nutshell essence of this physical, emotional, mental body that's kind of like miniaturized, and that's drawn on again for the next life and the next life and the next life. So even though we have different bodies and embody in different genetic lineages life after life, there's a little nucleus of something that we have in every life. But really the one constant in terms of vehicle from life to life is the soul vehicle. And that's where a lot of us carry a lot of that baggage that we have from other lives. When we talked about the childhood issues and coming into the world and coming into a particular family, particular situations, having particular experiences when we were growing up, we mentioned the fact that none of it is random. We didn't land into this family just because that's where, God threw us and that's just where we landed. It's not like that. Everything is the consequence of a particular cause, and in this instant it's the law of magnetic attraction that causes us to be incarnated with certain people in particular places and having particular experiences in order to resolve the baggage that we carry at soul level, and in order to resolve any unresolved karma that we may have with other people, or in terms of our own experiences of life and the consequences of our own choices. Karma is really the mechanism through which we experience the consequences of our choices in order to learn to make wiser choices and to learn to become more of who and what we are as a being of love, making wise choices in every moment. So, sometimes there's that reaction around karma. It's like, oh my God, karma is that big stick, is the punishment, where you get punished for all the bad things you do. Well, it's not like this. It's not about punishing. It's about helping you learn your lessons. And it's just a system that's set in place to bring certain consequences to your choices, bring certain experiences in your life so that you integrate the learning that you need to transcend fear, to transcend limitation, to transcend cruelty or corruption, all these things that are so much less than what you need to be in order to grow into becoming your own source, which is the ultimate, well, it's not the destination, it's the beginning of another cycle where you will be your own source of your own little creation. And we're here practicing that by learning to be at the source of our own life, and to learn to be a co-creator and then a creator of our own life and our own reality, and then expand that on bigger and bigger levels as we grow into embodying more of our source potential. And so the experience from life to life is we're able to embody in all these different bodies life to life because we have that soul vehicle, which is a bit like the bridge between that non-incarnate spirit aspects and the embodied matter aspects that we incarnate into. So it is really a matrix that allows us to then express physically. Now, just as we carry a certain amount of baggage in these bodies, I mean, we all have a tendency to stuff unresolved issues, avoided and denied issues into the physical body, into our emotional bodies, into our mental bodies. So we do also at soul level. When we really judge something, or when we really identify with something, when we hang on to something, when we give something a lot of energy and start to allow ourselves to be influenced by some issue or some challenge in our life, we will tend to then upload it to soul level. Not everything that you have in this life you will get to take with you at soul level. There's certain things that you experience in your day-to-day that you don't give much energy, you don't give much thought to, it's not a big issue. So it's not like every single thing that you experience and every single thing you feel and every single thought you ever have is going to create some baggage at soul level. It's not like that. It's really the things that you can't let go of, the things that you judge, the things that you don't want to resolve, the things you deny and avoid and put importance on. They're really going to become these like key pieces of baggage at soul level. And in the same way, when we go through the healing and unraveling process of all the baggage and the hurts and the pain that we have, we need to really make sure that we allow that to transform in all of our full body system, including at soul level. And we need to make sure that the learning that we gain in any particular day, we upload at soul level. And how we do that is, a real easy way to do that is the nightly review. Because before you go to sleep, you take the time to review how you went through your day, what you learned, where you didn't do so good, and you can run the process on any charge and issues and judgment that are still there to kind of harmonize things at the end of the day, to kind of come to the end of the day really in a space of acceptance and peace with how your day was, and really having also had maybe some realization or learned how you can do it better the next day. And that process really puts your psyche, your energy, and your full body system in a place where at night you're really able to continue the integration of that, of whatever learning was for that day. And whatever insights you have, you really can upload it at soul level, because a lot of things happen in a sleep state that's about integrating. You know, there's a certain amount of classifying, you know, like that kind of almost like an automatic process that goes on in the sleep, where it's like your mind and your psyche just allocating what goes into what box about, you know, your day's experience. This was good, this was bad, this is something to remember, this is something not to remember. Doesn't really matter, because, you know, we can't necessarily store every single moment of every single experience that we've had in a day in every single second. So there's a certain amount of sorting out in a sleep state of what matters, what doesn't matter, what you'll remember, what you want, what you will, you know, keep happening the next day, well, will just, you know, be maybe filed away. And that nightly review also really helps you to reaffirm to yourself and all your bodies what's important and what's not. And that really helps that sleep state integration process to know that, oh, these things, don't forget don't put that in a bin, because that's really important. We need to remember this, and we need to value this, and we need to keep working on this. So that's that nightly review, and that really, you know, grounding and remembering and bringing together all the things that you learned and experienced in that day is a really easy way to help upload stuff at soul level. So that the shifts that you experience, the learning and the growth that you experience, is not just going to be something you experience here on the ground, but it makes no difference in your eternal journey. When you upload it at soul level, that learning is going to be there for the next life, and hopefully the one after that and the one after that. And this is how we grow as souls as well. Just like we grow and mature as people, we also grow as souls, life after life after life. More experience, hopefully more wisdom. Unfortunately, it also means that sometimes there's more impacts and more challenges, and we get knocked around a bit. And all the times where, instead of making choices of love and choices of wisdom and choices about growing and doing our best, we actually give in to our fears and our pain and our anger, and we make choices that are less than love, choices that are about maybe giving into our mediocrity or playing small or giving into the urges of the physical vehicle you know, just getting carried away in our little dramas and getting taken over by all the patterns of the negative ego. When we do that, obviously we don't really grow as souls. And when you do that in one life, you obviously, by the end of the life, you're in a space of being less conscious, less clear, less expanded usually than at the beginning of the life if you came in and then, you know, you made lots of choices of fear. And if you do that for enough lifetimes, you know, it can take you a little while to retrace your steps. And to some degree, everyone here has done some of that along the journey. You know, it's not always been easy. You know, we've had lots of different lives in lots of different places and lots of different times. And sometimes it was hard, and sometimes it was painful, and sometimes we forgot to choose love, or we got carried away in whatever was going on for us. So we started to maybe give in to our greed or selfishness, and we just went unconscious, and we just became less than what we were before. And to some degree, a lot of us are here to recover from such experiences. Some of us have had a journey a bit like this, up and down, you know, choices of love, growing, or losing it a bit and starting again and losing it a bit. Others were really quite together, and something major happened that caused you to crash and start to go unconscious and make choices of fear. And then you've really kind of been lost since, but not completely lost because you're here. For other people, it was just like a gradual, more like growing, you know. Not everyone was like some great soul in the past. Most of you, you know, at some point or another were, and it was a gradual thing. For some, it was, yeah, you know, able to do great things and so on, then crashed, and since then it's been really kind of building up again and recovering. You know, so everyone's journey is unique. And so what happens with all these impacts and these experiences that we have in different lives is that it does affect our sense of self-esteem as a soul. The 4 pillars of self-esteem, it's not just about the human bits, they also affect us as a soul. And some of us who've done some of this work, filling into stuff from other lives, we know that wherever we've been really hanging on to certain experiences where we did something that we really judge, and we have so much guilt and judgment about those things, it's really affected our sense of self-esteem as a soul. And you know, so some people just, because of that big thing that they did that was so bad and so destructive, and they judge it so much, they've never really recovered because it really knocked their sense of self-esteem really badly at soul level. And life after life, they'd either be punishing themselves for what they did, or not feeling worthy to be great again because they judged too much what they've done, and, you know, not allowing their sense of self-determination to get them to get back on their feet and work back up again to kind of sort all the fear and all the impacts that they experienced and get their shit together again as a soul. For other people, it's really a sense of having had, for whatever reason, once again, there's always cause and consequence, nothing happens randomly, but having had some really, sometimes soul-destroying experiences, you know. Sometimes we make choices that are really soul-destroying, where we sell ourselves out, we give something really sacred and precious of ourselves away to someone who just tramples all over it. Or sometimes we do it because that's what we feel we deserved. Or sometimes, you know, we have some hard lives where we get really abused in ways that just really damage us. And so all of that can really knock around your sense of self-esteem. And then when you go into your next life, or your next lives, you come into the life with obviously some low self-esteem issues to sort out, because maybe for, you know, the previous 5 lifetimes you've really been, you know, treated badly, oppressed, repressed, abused, things like that. And then it's really life after life starting to really affect you, and then you come into this life with all these self-esteem issues. So it's not like you're born into a family with pristine self-esteem on every level, and then it's just the experiences of this life that affect your self-esteem. There's already some baggage from other lives around that. You know, some of us, you know, to some degree, we all here working the spiritual path because all of us have been involved in working with spirituality or religion in some way or another, often in many lives, in many guises. And the impacts of that can, you know, be felt. And I know, you know, many here in the group have you know, are aware and conscious of certain impacts due to following a particular religious path or several. You know, sometimes that's caused us to to feel like we have to really try hard to get God's love, or we have to behave a certain way or fit within a certain box to be worthy, or that we're shameful just by nature. And so there's all kinds of beliefs, because remember, the soul can have beliefs and illusions that can be running there at soul level that can really influence experiences in this life as well. So no matter what journey we've gone through, no matter what the impacts, what's important is not so much remembering where you've been, who you've been, what you've done, all the story of that. What's really important is to get in touch with the feelings and the baggage that you have here as a soul, because you're here as a soul, and all the baggage and all the feelings that you need to work on that are unresolved, all the limitation that you put on yourself as a soul, they're right here for you to be felt. You don't need to go in the past or project your awareness into some other life or other time to be able to solve them. All you have to do is just expand your awareness within yourself to get in touch with yourself as a soul. When we grow in the process in awareness, we first of all, well, we go through this process we've worked on the last couple of days of going unconscious, maybe betraying our truth, repressing ourselves, shutting down some of that. And what we do is really identify as a personality. We just think we are this person that we are right now. I'm Segolene, I'm Dallas, I'm Lorraine, this is who I am. And we just identify with being this personality, which is an egoic personality. It's just a thing. But it's not the truth of who we are, because we are so much more than that. But when we go unconscious, we forget that we are more than just this little thing, this person, this body. And then you start to wake up and you realize that you're not just a physical body, you also have emotions and a mind. And then you start to, after a bit of work, to start to be more conscious as a soul. This is where you start to get in touch with the feeling that there's more to you than just this person, that you've been places before, you've had experiences before this life, that there's something in you that's deeper than just this life. There's something in you that's, lived before. And when you start to get in touch with that feeling, you start to get in touch with yourself as a soul. And as you keep working on, I am this, I have a body, yet I am not my body. I have emotions, yet I am not my emotions. I have a mind, yet I am not my mind. You start to identify more as a soul traveling through eternity. And this is just one life amongst many. And then as you keep growing, then you transcend that and you start to learn to identify more as the spirit that's then experiencing as a soul through all these lives, and right now is experiencing in this body. So it's a progressive process of just going from identifying with the physical body, and a lot of people are still caught up in just thinking they're just this, to then, being a bit more of the human bit, then identifying more with being a soul, and then identifying more with being the spirit that expresses as a soul. And all of you, the souls that you are just one of several souls that spirit of which you are has or expresses through. So, this is the spirit that you are expresses through this soul and other souls. So it's, it's sometimes possible that you meet, it's very rare to meet another soul of the same spirit, very rare, and but it's possible, rarely, that you can meet another soul that's actually an embodiment of the same spirit. And, obviously, if you go back far enough, all of us are an embodiment of the same source. So, we all kind of spiritual relatives, but some of us a bit further related than others. So, yeah. So the self-esteem at soul level, once again, just like we did the process with the childhood and adolescence, we need to really get in touch with how we're feeling as a soul. Do we feel that we're a radiant soul with so much potential, and embracing that potential and feeling that we can allow ourselves to be great, and that we've had a great journey? Or do we feel really that we've got a bit banged around as a soul? Do we manage to get that sense of, oh yeah, I've been places before, I've had experiences beyond this life, that sometimes there's a sense of familiarity that can happen, when you're traveling and you have a sense of like, oh, it feels so like home here. It's so comfortable and so familiar. Or sometimes you can almost like, oh, this looks really familiar. It's almost like I've been here before. These feelings often happen when, you have. Yeah, so sometimes it's just first time you've been somewhere and you just feel completely at home, like, oh, like you've just been here forever. And, you know, that's going to happen in places where you've often had many lives.
Sometimes, you know, I have that experience where you meet somebody, oh my God, I know you.
Yeah, yeah.
That's pretty common, isn't it?
Yeah, you have that experiences as well with people that can seem so familiar. It's almost like you're picking up where you left off. It's the first time you meet them, but it's like, oh, straight away there's a connection, there's an affinity, there's a sense of being comfortable with them. And that's, you know, that can be just like an old friend or an old lover or an old, you know, someone that you were actually in good term with. Because sometimes there's also, you meet someone and it's like, oh, I hate this person. I don't know why, I've never met them before, but I want to bloody gut them and cut them into pieces, you know. Or, you know, sometimes you have more that sense of, you know, you meet someone for the first time, but you have like, it really stirs up a lot of stuff in you, you know, and that can also be, you know, because you've met them before and maybe they were really horrible to you. Maybe they did horrible things to you, or maybe you did horrible things to them that you really judge, you know, that happens as well. This is not the only possibilities. You know, sometimes we have this strong, like, oh, I don't like this person's energy simply because the way they vibrate is very different to our energy. There's no energetic affinity. That's also a possibility, you know, but usually if you're not too caught up in the glamour of past lives and meeting old friends again or any of that, and you're really honest with yourself, you get a sense of whether you have a reaction to someone just because they have an energy that, you know, swings with yours, or it's just like a really like an old friend that you're meeting again. You know, we talked about the other day how most of us here have encountered each other, sometimes a lot, sometimes a bit, sometimes a lot a long time ago and not so much since. It really depends, but yeah, and you know, I'm sure that several of us have had that sense of recognition, like, oh, you know, first time I meet you, but yeah, I feel like I know you, like I've met you before or something, and that happens. So, you know, the process of getting in touch with that soul stuff is, first of all, really getting in touch with that part of you that feels much, much older than just this life. You know, this, oh, wow, you know, I know in there that there's part of me that's experienced much more than just this life. And then sometimes things that can help is when you feel particular affinities or issues with particular times or events in history. That can also be because you still have issues. Maybe you were around and you still have issues around that. Maybe what can happen sometimes as well, it's more like an archetypal likeness. It's like a particular event in history. It might not be that you were there experiencing that particular event, but it's very similar to an experience you had in one of your lives. Just like a random example, let's say you really, you know, have a lot of judgment about what the white American people did to the Native American Indians, you know. But so that can be either that you were there and, you know, maybe you were an Indian and you still have a lot of pain and judgment around what happened to your people. Or maybe it was that you were like an Aborigine and you really, it's a bit of a similar thing that happened with the, you know, Captain Cook coming in and taking over and all that stuff. And so it's a similar experience, but it's not exactly the same place, you know. So it can happen sometimes that if you're charged about a particular thing that happened, it's not necessarily you were there, it's just more that it's similar to something that you experienced. But like I said before, what matters is not so much the story of who, what, and where, it's the feelings. So as long as it helps you get in touch with the feelings, then you can work on healing all that baggage at soul level. Now the 4 pillars with belonging, you know, as a soul, that can have really been knocked around by lifetimes where, you know, maybe you were the only one in a particular place that had any clue, that stayed conscious, and you felt really alone and you felt you didn't fit in because, you know, you were so different from anyone else. So maybe there was some lives where you experienced a lot of being ostracized and maybe ridiculed, or and you really took that to heart and you really took that personally and hung to that pain so that it stuck at soul level rather than just experiencing that and not letting it really affect you right to that core of the soul level. So a lot of it is about what you've allowed to affect you, really affect you all the way to your soul in different lives. Some of the stuff we're dragging on from life to life, some of us have been hanging on to stuff for thousands of years. thousands, you know. We really need to let go. Another thing that happens as well sometimes is that we have a perception of something we did or something that happened in one particular life that we judge to be bad, or we judge that we failed at whatever it is that we were trying to achieve, and so on. But we have to remember also that those judgments and beliefs that we have at soul level, they may or may not be true. You know, maybe you perceived at the time that you had failed or that you did something bad, but actually you hadn't. Because, you know, maybe when you died, things did seem to be still in a mess, but maybe 50, 100 years later, the consequences of whatever you did were actually really favorable. So there's a lot of judgment you have there that may or may not be relevant as well. And sometimes, you know, you just think you failed, but you didn't, because that was just your belief at the time, but that doesn't make it true, because, you know, you may have been as clueless in any other life as you are in this one. So you can't just think that whatever you felt or thought or believed in another life is any more valid than what you can perceive now. And certainly when you're feeling into certain past life things, in a way it's easier to clear than stuff from this life, because you have that distance and that perspective. You know, you're not so caught up in being that person and having that person's life. But at the same time, it can take a bit longer, just because it kind of, you know, at soul level, it runs deep, and it just can take a little while longer to really clear. So you have to kind of stick with it and be patient with the stuff you're clearing at soul level. So yeah, the belonging can be experienced by lots of things like this, and you really let that affect your sense of, you know, as a soul, like right to your core, you just feel like you don't belong in this world and you have no place in this world, and you'll come into the next life with that, carrying that. And likeliness is you're going to manifest a family where you don't belong, or an experience where you don't belong. Maybe you don't even want to incarnate again, you know, maybe you've judged experiences that you've had life after life, that you don't want to have to be born and do it all again, you know, here we go again. And, you know, that is something that can really stop you from resolving what you need to resolve when you don't really want to be here. You know, you judge and you want to avoid so much what you've experienced in the past that you don't want to be alive again, you don't want to incarnate again. But, you know, this is the only way that you're really going to sort out all this stuff that you need to sort out. So, you know, the uniqueness as well. The same things that can really affect that in this life is what can affect it in other lives. And the same with worthiness, and the same with self-determination, all the things that we allow to break us, to get to us, where we've taken it personally, made it about us, and lots of different experiences. There's been lots of things in the world that happened the last few thousand years, many thousand years, that can really knock us around, you know. There's for many of us here on the spiritual path, the experience of, especially in this path here, embracing the more alchemical approach to personal growth and spirituality, we often hear because Orthodox religion just doesn't cut it for us anymore. You know, maybe we enjoyed doing it for a while, but it just doesn't work for us, or maybe we've had some unpleasant experience with it, and that's often something that's quite present with people that in this group that work with us, is just some stuff to sort out around religion and your experience of that and the judgment of that, and to make peace with all of that is a very important part of healing yourself as a soul in terms of your relationship with spirit, with the universe, and with spirituality, because sometimes there are blocks that people have to really embracing their connection with spirit and growing and developing their gifts and all of that, because they're shut down because of experiences having to do with religion. That's very common. Lots of people I've worked with have that. Other, you know, key things in history. I mean, all the things, you know, like I was talking about the Native American Indians and the Aborigines and stuff. That's another theme that runs quite commonly. You know, there's wars, or the experience of being a warrior. You know, most of us have had those experiences in different lives. And, you know, the experience of war can be exhilarating or harrowing. You know, it's a very strange life, being a warrior. There's, you know, the battle fury and the victory and all of that, but there's the blood and the guts and the loss and the constantly, you know, being on the verge of facing death. And it's a very, you know, that can have its own impacts. You know, some of us have had famous lives and not famous lives. It's, you know, it's You just can't have any expectations, not really any that matters. You know, usually the way history remembers particular characters in history is not always very accurate. So you can't necessarily also believe whatever you read. Yeah, we've all had privileged lives and poor lives. We've all been the bum on the dirty, muddy street and the, you know, king or queen or duke or whatever with the crown. But what have we learned from it? What have we made of those lives? And how has that affected us as souls? And where have we traveled since then? Have we grown? Have we diminished ourselves? Are we playing small? Are we letting the weight of the past and our sense of self-esteem as a soul really prevent us from growing as souls? With the 2012 shift thing happening at the end of, towards the end of December there on the solstice, it would really be great to drop as much of that baggage of the last few thousand years especially off, because how at peace you feel as a person and as a human being is a very important part of the process, because you know that's going to a great extent define the space you're able to hold and how much you're able to connect and expand and receive the gifts of whatever that shift can bring in the moment it happens. So you know, if you're not in acceptance of your humanness and all the stuff that you carry as a human being, you know, you're not going to be able to really grow and make room for it. So it's very important to not think that, oh, well, all that matters is the stuff at soul level, because at the end of this life, this stops existing. So, you know, I'm not going to worry too much about the human baggage. I'm just going to work on my soul stuff. Because obviously the human baggage is related to the soul stuff, like I said before. You know, it's the human vehicle is what you're using to sort out your baggage at soul level. However, because we're here on this accelerated path, we also have an opportunity to feel into stuff at soul level without having to necessarily go through all of the long and arduous phenomena to sort it out. We're able to process a lot more things without necessarily having to go on all the circuitous journeys to get the learning. So we have to work both as a soul and as a human being. The human being very important, and also as a soul, there's certain things that we've been hanging on for so long that have been really defining us life after life after life for hundreds of years, thousands of years. That would be good to let go of some of that before the end of the year, so it doesn't keep defining us too much for the next cycle. Of course, we only have a few weeks left, so you know, major things that we've been hanging on for 1,000 years is going to be hard to just completely let go, but there's still a lot of stuff that we can let go of. But the other thing that we can do as well is really see how we can come to a place of acceptance and love and embracing and patience and gratitude for all these things, the impacts and the woundings and all this that we've been carrying on for so long, so that it can actually turn into an asset and a gift and something that's going to help us be stronger, be kinder, be more compassionate, be more self-determining, understand the human condition more, all these things that our baggage can actually help us do, and really be in a place where that's the relationship we have with the baggage that we don't really have time to sort out in the next few weeks, because that is also a nice way to take these things into the new in a way that's actually going to turn it into a gift. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So the self-esteem stuff at soul level, well, I'm not going to start some big process on it right now, but I'd like us to really, and you know, today and through the night and tonight, and then we'll do some more work on tomorrow, to start to connect into the souls that we are. You know, some of us have done it before and are much more able to tap into that. For others, it's quite a new thing. But really getting in touch with that part of us that, yeah, feels much older than just this life. Feels like, yeah, it's been a man and a woman and, you know, lived in Japan and, you know, been a pirate or, you know, been the bloody prostitute in the streets of London or whatever, you know. And you don't have to know the story, but just get in touch with that feeling of being so much more than just this life and this embodiment, and having traveled before, life after life, and what feelings are there, and really just allow yourself to, you know, start to explore what's there, and if there are any particular thing, event, places that really stick out for you, that, you know, bring up stuff for you, or that you have lots of judgment, lots of charge about, or a deep love for, you know, and it can be a bit of both. Like I remember when I first went to Scotland, I love Scotland. I have this love for the place. Like I just want to squeeze it and kiss it, you know. It's a bit big to do that, but I just, this deep love, my God. And, you know, and the land, like when I was there, just welcomed me, you know, recognized me, because the place is the land where you go, and the guardian of these places, you know, especially where you've had several lives there. And if you were actually holding a certain presence and maybe working with the land and actually, you know, being at least conscious to some degree or another, and been good to the place, or maybe fought for the place, or the independence of the place, or, you know, the people from that place, or whatever. These places remember you, you know, and they welcome you, and you feel really welcome when you arrive in those places. And I had that experience in Scotland, but at the same time, I had so much grief. Like I spent a month straight, like every day, crying for like an hour or two every day, just from like looking around me. I'd see the hills and go, whoa! And, you know, there's obviously, and I didn't remember anything about when I was there or what I was doing or any of that. All I knew is that I had all these feelings about it. And so I just went through that, just felt the feeling, felt the love, felt the grief, felt the longing and the loss and whatever was there, and went through that process. And then, you know, after a month, I kind of was able to walk around the place without crying, which was great. But, you know, kind of reflect on maybe some experiences that you had like that, you know, whether it's with certain people or certain places, and that may help you get in touch with particular lives that were impactful for you, because not all lives were impactful. So that's one aspect of the process that I'd like you to work with tonight, that getting in touch with the soul experience, the feelings there. The other aspect is I'd like you to do a bit of review of how, once you've got in touch with that, how do you feel your self-esteem pillars are going on that level, at soul level, and really see if there's a gap or difference between the human pillars and how they're feeling in the 3 lower bodies and the soul pillars. Because if there's a gap, there's something there that you need to work on as well. Like either if the soul pillars are not, you know, as solid, the foundation is not as solid as the human, you know, there's quite a gap. You're probably not uploading all the gains and the shifts that you're having properly at soul level. And if it's a country where the soul level is so much more together than the human, there's probably some issues you have around the human bits of you, where you're not really embracing and accepting and loving that. There can be a bit of a difference at soul level and in the human part, and that's actually a bit healthy in a way, to have a bit of a stronger foundation in the human bit than at soul level, because when you invite more energy in and you ground more, the human bit is often the bits that struggle the most. And in a way, if there is, you know, a bit of a more solid foundation on the human level to welcome that new energy and expressing more of your soul potential and so on, in a way that kind of helps, you know, the process. But there can't be too much of a gap between the two, you know. There needs to be a certain amount of integration, so that the human bit and the soul bit, and then, you know, can be more or less in par to welcome more of the spirit of all that you are, to ground and anchor. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So do we feel capable of working with that tonight? Mm-hmm. So, you know, this is very much something you can't really talk about. You know, it's a very personal experience, a very personal journey. So that's probably something you're going to have to, you know, of course you can talk about some stuff, but mostly just sit and be by yourself and do whatever you need to do to get in touch with these things and to do that review. Yeah, the danger also with group discussion when we do some of this work with past lives and soul stuff is that we can start to get a bit caught up in the story of who was where and who did what and the glamour of all of this. And, you know, you got to be really careful with that whole glamour of past lives, you know. It's not about reclaiming the past, it's about healing it so you can be much greater now and in the future than you have been the last few lifetimes, few thousand years. Great. Any questions? All right then. Well. So enjoy tonight. And we'll do a lot more tomorrow. Some feeling, some processing. We'll do some music processing again to get in touch with some of this stuff and take it from there.